people who think for themselves never drift, while those who do little or no thinking for themselves are drifters. Little or no thinking for themselves are drifters. Who do little or no thinking for themselves are drifters.
Welcome back to Badass Conjure, No Narc Network TV, and Oshun Ajay Exclusive. This is lesson 4 of Dissecting the Devil. And, I think we've learned quite a bit so far in the first 3 lessons. If you have not checked out the first 3 lessons, you still have time to catch up. Those lessons are on YouTube. We've basically learned, and thank you to the group members who answered the 2 questions at the end of lesson 3. And if you're in the group and you haven't answered the questions yet, feel free to still submit your answers. You guys are very inspiring to one another, you know what I'm saying, as well as to me. So thank you very much for answering those questions. And I'm very just proud to have you guys on board, okay? Because I know going forward as we grow that you guys are going to be a great inspiration to some people who are not at the point where you guys are, okay? So, but anyway, we're going into lesson 4, and basically right now we already know that, basically the enemy infiltrates our minds when we are our minds are idle. Okay, so that saying, an idle mind is the devil's playground, is very true. Okay, so we know that, when we are quote unquote drifting, then, we are susceptible for our minds being infiltrated and negative seeds being planted in our minds that we then nurture by giving them our attention, by daydreaming about things that we don't want to happening in the future, not realizing that our minds are very powerful, and that by us imagining these things, we are actually drawing those things to us and creating these things, giving them a form. Okay. So basically, now that we know this, we have to learn and find ways to not do it. Okay. But I want to basically we want to go to the root. We want to start at the root. Okay. And at the root is most of this happened to people in their early childhood. Okay. These issues need to be addressed. Okay, so a lot of people have had early childhood traumas or just traumatic childhoods altogether. Okay, so at some point, the reflection on your past, on whatever it is that you've been through, is going to have to happen. Okay, and it doesn't have to happen with anyone else. It is between you and your God. Okay. But so I just want to put that seed there so that you guys are preparing. At some point going forward on your path, you will have to address, whatever it is that caused this to happen, so that we are, again, digging these seeds up by the root, because some of them have been planted very deeply. Okay. And some of them have sprouted some very strong weeds. Okay. That have already grown in your minds. And so we have to get those out of there. Okay. So, but it's no worries. We are going forward, and this is what we came here to do. Okay, so with that being said, let's go ahead into lesson 4.
A drifter is one who permits himself to be influenced and controlled by circumstances outside of his own mind. He would rather let me occupy his mind and do his thinking than go to the trouble of thinking for himself. A drifter is one who accepts whatever life throws in his way without making a protest or putting up a fight. He doesn't know what he wants from life and spends all of his time getting just that. A drifter has lots of opinions, but they are not his own. Most of them are supplied by me. A drifter is one who is too lazy mentally to use his own brain. That is the reason I can take control of people's thinking and plant my own ideas in their minds.
I think I understand what a drifter is. Tell me the exact habits of people by which you induce them to drift through life. Start by telling me when and how you first gained control of a person's mind.
My control over the mind of a human being is obtained while the person is young. Sometimes I lay the foundation for my control of a mind before the owner of it is born, by manipulating the minds of that person's parents.
So this reminds me of when I did a reading on XXX Tentacion, and you can find that reading on my Badass Tarot 2 channel, okay? And I also did a discussion about him because he was a very interesting spirit who was intended to be a fisher of men. But what I saw when I did his reading was that his parents had been targeted before his birth, so that when he came into the world, he would not have the proper support that he needed to become what he was to become. And I'll post the link to that reading in the description box as well, okay?
Sometimes I go further back than this and prepare people for my control through what you earthbound call physical heredity. You see, therefore, I have two approaches to the mind of a person.
Yes. Go on, and describe these two doors by which you enter and control the minds of human beings.
As I have stated, I help to bring people into your world with weak brains by giving to them before birth as many as possible of the weaknesses of their ancestors. You call this principle physical heredity. After people are born, I make use of what you earthbound call environment as a means of controlling them. This is where the principle of habit enters. The mind is nothing more than the sum total of one's habits. One by one, I enter the mind and establish habits, which lead finally to my absolute domination of the mind.
Tell me of the most common habits by which you control the minds of people.
That is one of my cleverest tricks. I enter the minds of people through thoughts which they believe to be their own. Those most useful to me are fear, superstition, avarice, greed, lust, revenge, anger, vanity, and plain laziness. Superstition, avarice, greed, lust, revenge, anger, vanity, and plain laziness. Superstition, avarice, greed, lust, revenge, anger, vanity, and plain laziness. Through one or more of these I can enter any mind, at any age. But I get my best results when I take charge of a mind while it is young, before its owner has learned how to close any of these 9 doors. Then I can set up habits which keep the doors ajar forever.
I'm catching on to your methods. Now, let us go back to the habit of drifting. Tell us all about that habit, since you say it is your cleverest trick in controlling the minds of people.
As I said before, I start people drifting during their youth. I induce them to drift through school without knowing what occupation they wish to follow in life. Here I catch the majority of people. Habits are related. Drift in one direction and soon you will be drifting in all directions. I also use environmental habits to give me a definite grip on my victims.
I see. You make it your business to train children in the habit of drifting by inducing them to go through school without aim or purpose. Now, tell me of some of your other tricks with which you cause people to become drifters.
Well, my second best trick in developing the habit of drifting is one that I put into operation with the aid of parents and public school teachers and religious instructors. I warn you not to force me to mention this trick. Do not disclose this trick. If you do so, you will be hated by my coworkers who help me use this trick.
It's funny how he talks about his co-workers and, these are the people he basically, infected or possessed one by one to do his work, such as the preachers, the teachers, the religious teachers anyway, the teachers, the school teachers, and their parents basically have all been indoctrinated to this demonic agenda, and they all unknowingly teach the children, the devil's, the way of the devil. Okay. And that's really a good parallel with my dream, because in my dream we were at work and he was taking the people in to the office one by one and telling them some shit that they thought they was finding out about the company, which was basically this mass hypnosis, and they all are serving the same agenda. And when they would come out, they were possessed and they didn't know it. So a lot of what he is saying has has a lot of significance to the dream that I had, you know, and I just wanted to make that point. And once again, I am going to be posting that dream up after this video premieres, okay?
If you publish this confession in book form, your book will be barred from the public schools. It will be blacklisted by most of the religious leaders. It will be hidden from children by many parents. The newspapers will not dare to give reviews of your book. Millions of people will hate you for writing the book.
So keep in mind, you guys, that the book was not published for 73 years after it was actually written. Okay, so basically, he did try to get the book published. He did try to publicize the information at the time when he got the information, and exactly what the enemy, the devil, told him was going to happen, happened to him, basically. He, you know, his information was suppressed again for 73 years. Okay, so this book was just published in 2011, even though it was written in 1938. Okay, so just keep that in mind.
In fact, no one will like you or your book except those who think, and you know how very few there are of this sort. My advice to you is to let me skip the description of my second best trick.
So, for my own good, you wish to withhold the description of your second best trick. No one will like my book except those who think, eh? Very well, go ahead and answer.
You'll regret this, Mr. Earthbound, but the joke is on you. By this mistake of yours, you will divert attention from me to yourself. My co-workers, of whom there are millions, will forget about me and hate you for uncovering my methods.
Never mind about me. Tell me all about this second best trick of yours with which you induce people to drift with you to hell.
My second best trick is not second at all. It is first. It is first because without it I never could gain control of the minds of the youths. Parents, school teachers, religious instructors, and many other adults unknowingly serve my purpose by helping me to destroy in children the habit of thinking for themselves. They go about their work in various ways, never suspecting what they are doing to the minds of children or the real cause of the children's mistakes.
So this reminds me of the two little boys that I actually shook the devil out of in my dream about the time of change. And I know a lot of you probably may have not heard that dream. I believe it's on one of my other channels, but I do know that I did retell the dream in the middle of one of my narc videos. So what I'm going to do is try to extract just the dream part of that and to re-upload it so that whenever I make reference to my dream about the time of change and it's two dreams, the dream about the time of change and then the great fire. Okay, these were my two prophetic dreams that are very significant to what's happening now with the narcissism epidemic and just globally, you know, what's coming for everyone. And so I do want everyone to have seen or heard the dream, okay, so that when I refer to it going forward in this study, that you guys are, you know, aware of what I'm talking about. So I will re-upload that sometime later today, okay?
I can hardly believe you, Your Majesty. I've always believed that children's best friends were those closest to them, their parents, their school teachers, and their religious instructors. Where would children go for dependable guidance if not to those who have charge of them?
That is where my cleverness comes in. There is the exact explanation of how I control 98% of the people of the world. I take possession of people during their youth, before they come into possession of their own minds, by using those who are in charge of them. I especially need the help of those who give children their religious instruction, because it is here that I break down independent thought and start people on the habit of drifting, by confusing their minds with unprovable ideas concerning a world of which they know nothing.
First of all, children are bored as hell in church and in school, and this is because of the subject matter and the approach. And so knowing this, most of the children are drifting while in both of these places. At the same time, a lot of subliminal seeds of fear are being planted in their minds, okay, in school concerning a lot of what's happening in the world, and in church concerning what might happen to them after they leave this world, okay, because because of what they've done in the world. And so, you know, having people in a constant state of fear is definitely not of the Most High. And this is where, again, a lot of the seeds of the devil have been planted right there in church, where they think that they're taking their children to, you know, be guided in the right direction in life. And for the most part, they are actually going there to be corrupted, which is basically due to the fact that putting the total responsibility for educating your children about the world around them and about quote unquote God is indirectly teaching them to drift, thereby enabling the devil's co-workers to plant seeds that will inevitably cause your child to grow into someone or something that is unrecognizable to you.
What do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world. Try to take over the world. Try to take over the world.
So this was a cartoon called Pinky and the Brain that ran from 1995 to 1998. They were two mice, or a rat and a mouse, whatever. And the tall one was Pinky, who was the obvious drifter, who was obviously dim-witted and didn't think very much, okay? He was always asking the Brain, who was a self-proclaimed brain, and the obviously demonically possessed one, what they were going to do. And of course, the agenda was always the devil's agenda, which was to take over the world, okay? So the Brain had always had these plans to take over the world, which were never well thought out. And so they always end up messing themselves up in some kind of way, okay? So their plans never worked, okay? So basically, the overall message here, and the way that you can parallel this with the way that narcissists act, okay, and the agenda of the devil, there's a lot of things to take from it, okay? Just noticing that the devil's agenda is in place and has been in place for a long time, okay? Even in the cartoons, these messages, these subliminal messages are here, okay? But not only that, the overall message here is that what I've been teaching, because basically the Brain was a self-proclaimed brain, which was not very smart at all because none of his plans ever worked. But the message to take from it is to watch how Pinky was always asking the Brain what we're going to do tonight and allowing him to make the decisions, okay? And so therefore Pinky represented the drifter, okay? And the Brain represented the one who was demonically possessed, the quote unquote narcissist, okay? And it's just very indicative of people in this society. And we want to make sure that we don't become either one of these characters, okay? But that we are using our own brains to think for ourselves. But I did want to point that out, that this agenda has been in place. And if you look closely enough, you'll find it just about everywhere you look.
Are you pondering what I'm pondering?
I think so, Brain. But where are we going to find a duck and a hose at this hour? I think so. But where will we find an open tattoo parlor at this time of night? Well, I think so, Brain. But if we didn't have ears, we'd look like weasels.
So I want you guys to notice how Pinky is often going against his better judgment. And this is because he has allowed the Brain to deceive him into believing that the Brain is the smarter of the two, okay? When in fact the Brain doesn't know any more than he does, okay? Which is why he goes along with all these stupid schemes that he knows is stupid going in. But because he has fallen for the deception, they both end up messed up 100% of the time, which will happen each and every time you allow your ego to override the intuition coming from your own spirit.
I think so, Brain, but isn't Regis Philbin already married? I think so, Brain, but Burlap chafes me so. Sure, Brain, but how are we going to find chaps our size? I think so, Brain, but we'll never get a monkey to use dental floss. I think so, Brain, but this time you wear the tutu.
So I hope that you guys are recognizing that Pinky and the Brain represent every other person that is, next to you in the world right now. Okay. So basically, most of the people are not using their own brains and allowing themselves to be controlled by someone who doesn't even know as much as they do, but who is allowing themselves to be controlled by the quote unquote devil, who is ultimately controlling them both. Okay. So, if you wish to regain, control over your own mind, you definitely have to be proactive in the process and understand that it is a process. Okay. So let's listen to Dane Spots explain how we can be proactive in changing our thoughts and thereby changing our reality. Okay.
The moment you shift how you think about yourself and your circumstances, both you and those circumstances will begin to change. Hello, this is Dane Spots. I'm sure you've heard the idea that our thoughts somehow shape the reality we experience, that negative thoughts influence the world around us and bring about negative circumstances, while positive thoughts somehow bring about positive circumstances. Well, an entire industry of motivational speakers has been created around this premise. Almost all of us have been exposed to the tenets of positive thinking. But if it works so well, then why isn't everyone who attends these seminars and reads these books rich and successful? And most of all, happy? If all we need to do is to think positive thoughts, we should be able to create a positive world almost overnight, shouldn't we? What's wrong with this picture? Well, I've spent the last 20 years trying to find out. And what I've discovered is a philosophy that I'll share with you along with a set of tools and programs I think will not only be a tremendous benefit, but will literally allow you to become your potential and derive the maximum pleasure out of life. Much of what I'm about to share with you will seem simple in concept. The best ideas usually are. And so I should warn you that there's a tendency to view these simple ideas from a surface level without really internalizing and practicing them. Therefore, I recommend that you listen to this tape a minimum of 4 times. 10 times would be even better.
So the repetition of positive thoughts is in essence reversing the law of hypnotic rhythm to work in your favor instead of against you. Okay?
And each time you hear these ideas, rather than using your rational intellectual mind, which analyzes things to death, use your playful risk-taking side and make the effort to incorporate these tools into your daily life. The reason I'm asking this of you is because I know that most of you will listen to this tape once and then stick it on a shelf, and you'll never really use the material. I want you to use this stuff, to practice it and internalize it. You see, it takes a commitment, a conscious commitment, to make positive change occur on a subconscious level. The tools and reprogramming processes must be used to make them work. Look, here's something I want you to realize right now. The old you will do everything in its power to prevent change. It will come up with excuses for not listening to the tapes. It will procrastinate and make excuses for not using these ideas and programs, even if they're good for you. And the reason why you'll do that to yourself is because the old you is comfortable. It has a built-in survival mechanism to protect the status quo.
So I hope my badasses in the group are prepared to step outside of your comfort zones.
And that's why change is so difficult. And it's also why positive thinking on a surface level always fails. Millions and millions of people attend positive thinking seminars or buy books and tapes each year, yet very few derive lasting benefits from them. If you've ever attended any of these seminars or read any of these books, you're usually high from the motivational uplift for about 2 days. Then you go back to your old self again. Listen, it isn't that the material isn't valid or doesn't work. It does. It's just that the positive thinking and motivational stories deal only with your conscious mind. And that conscious mind is not the engine that powers your life.
So the seeds of positivity that we will be replacing with the negative ones that we are digging up at the root will be planted and nurtured and watered in the subconscious mind. Okay?
Rather, it's the subconscious, or the unconscious portions of your mind from which your behavior and attitudes spring. Going directly into the unconscious and rewiring how you think about yourself and your future is the key to permanent and lasting change. Going directly into the unconscious and rewiring how you think about yourself and your future is the key to permanent and lasting change. Permanent and lasting change. Permanent and lasting change. And that's precisely what we'll be addressing
in the private No Narc network in the days, weeks, and months going forward. Okay, so the rest of this program will be posted in the group along with some other instructions. So this is going to end lesson 4. You guys go back over again the parts that were repeated or anything that stands out to you. Take note of these things. If you have any questions, concerns, and or needs, hit me up at godess111@gmail.com. If you wish to join the private No Narc network, join Oshun Ajay Exclusive. The link is in the description, along with the Cash App and PayPal donation links if you wish to support the channel. Okay, we will continue lesson 5 of Outwitting the Devil tomorrow. And until we meet again, my people, keep it classy, keep it clean, and do what you got to do to make shit happen. Peace.